Hi, friends.
What's up, everybody?
Coby and Ashlynn here. We are missing Brannon, but we're going to go ahead and record our weekly podcast. And it's a little different today. We always miss Brannon, but
Always do.
we can keep going and give you guys what you need. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to start us off. How do we plan our vacation and also figure out what we need?
Really good question, considering we just came home from vacation. But we're going to go ahead and just read a quick review. If you haven't yet, jump over to iTunes. Love to have you rate and review us. And that helps other people find the podcast. And it also gives you a chance to have your review read on the podcast
Hey,
itself.
I'm gonna also add in, if you have like feedback for the podcast, a great place to do that outside of the reviews is the survey that we have, and it's beyond-enough.com/survey. That can give you that gives us the feedback. If you're having any sort of like, hey, I'd love to hear this, or any sort of technical issues, that's where you want to reach out. Okay.
Cool. Very good. Very well said. Okay, this is called The First Thing That Helped. And it says, since finding out about numerous affairs and porn addiction over the 20 years of our marriage, just 6 weeks ago, a friend sent me this link. Between meeting with a therapist, not ready to handle this, and advice from friends, this podcast was the first actual helpful information I received. It allowed me to slow down, learn, and start to work proper steps. I know we have a long way to go, but with spouse also listening, it has given us much to learn and discuss. Thank you for your honesty, which is helping us navigate a forward path to a healthier marriage.
Okay. Can I just say,
Super cool.
Dang. I wish that was exactly where I found myself 6 weeks after disclosure. So I'm just grateful that you're here with us. I'm grateful for your positivity around listening and to slow down.
Yeah.
Um, just there's so many great resources for you out there, and I'm really grateful that you chose us as one of them.
Yeah. Because there's lots. I mean, people can do all kinds of things. And I just appreciate the fact that she's finding clarity.
Yeah.
Right.
Sounds like we both are.
Yeah. And remember, for those of you listening who have a partner who's willing to discuss recovery, this is a great way. And this is what Ashlynn and I did early in recovery. We developed intellectual intimacy. And that means we consumed information specifically from Brene Brown about shame early in recovery. And when Ashlynn would come home from group, or I would come home from group, or we would read something that that really spoke to us, we would share it. And that it wasn't, I wouldn't read something and then go, Ashlynn, guess how you shamed me? Let me just share this with you. Or you were so horrible when you said this. Because listen, this is what Brene.
Or I listened to this podcast and you should listen to it because it's all about you.
Yeah. Yeah. It wasn't like that. It was more in the context of, okay, this is the principle that I heard, and this is how I saw it in like my family of origin. And this is what my experience was with it. And it is helping me connect these dots.
Yeah. And that really was for us that, it
was like
intimacy,
an awakening. Yeah.
Like, look inside of me and
Yeah.
Here's me. Here's my vulnerability of saying, this is why it speaks to me. And we continue to do that.
Yeah.
We don't always listen or read the same material, but we definitely still share.
Yeah. It's been like a fundamental piece of life, really, now for both of us, which is really cool, considering where we were, because we guys, if you know us, if you don't know us, I don't know, but we never talked hard stuff ever when before we started recovery. Like, we just didn't. And we didn't have the skills, we didn't have the intellect, we didn't even have the desire to be uncomfortable and talk about hard things.
Right.
So it was really helpful for us. And
so we're saying basically there is hope.
Yeah, there is hope.
We were once not this. Okay. Let's start. we're talking about vacations, which this time of year, I think a lot of people, especially in a year like this, where
Mm,
2020 is, a lot of us have been
it's
locked
nuts.
down and we want to get out and go somewhere. Kobe and I just went with our children to the Pacific Northwest and checked out
Shout out
some
to the PNW.
Seattle and Washington, Seattle, Washington, and then the Oregon coast, northern. And we took this trip as like, hey, let's go recharge. Let's also kind of scout out places that we could potentially move. And we did a lot of planning ahead.
Yep.
Now, in the past, when we've done any trip, big, little, sometimes it didn't go so well, even if we planned ahead.
Yeah.
Um, Go ahead.
Well, I mean, we planned a lot. We planned a lot of trips. We've had a lot of trips, but the truth is that when we first, well, I would plan small things like I would say, okay, look, we're gonna go on vacation, and I want to be able to own my dailies, for example. So I'd come to Ashlynn and just say, hey, look, this is what I'm planning on doing as far as recovery is concerned while on vacation, because I never did anything. In fact, I was typically the person who, when I was out of the office or when I was out of the classroom, as far just going back to the days of being in college, if I wasn't at school, I didn't want to be doing anything. And so, meaning I didn't want to be doing
Like learning.
work. I would rather stay late at work than go home and have to work. And so when it came to vacation, historically speaking, I would do nothing that I would normally do in my day-to-day routine until recovery. And vacation is an interesting concept because I think a lot of times we just think I want to just take a vacation from all the things. And that changed for me when recovery started, because it was like I've got to fold this new part of my life into what we're going to do. So this is what you can expect from me. And we would talk about morning schedule and workout. We would talk about whether there wasn't an opportunity to work out, we would make adjustments and say we're going to walk X amount of steps today. For instance, when we would go to Disneyland, that was early, those were early days of recovery. We wouldn't work out, but we would
Walk 20,000
yeah,
miles.
seriously, it was
Steps, not miles.
so those are little things that we would plan to do that really did help us. And it was, I mean, I don't know what it was like for you, Ashlynn. I think early days for me, it was like, I've got to do this to show I'm still committed. I've got to do this to demonstrate, that I'm still in.
Mm-hmm.
But I think over time it became, now this is just what I do.
Yeah, I think it's more this is what we do. And I won't lie, a lot of the physical part of dailies is probably one that most people struggle with, for several different reasons, right? No one wants to work out.
Yeah.
I was one of those people. And so I'm not going to lie that it does help me that I have this other business, Mama Bear Fitness, that
Mm-hmm.
I show up for. And
Right.
I started that just 4 months before
Oh
all this
man,
was like
for sure.
dropped on me. And so it's not like I was this expert going into my dailies. It was something that was new to me still,
Yeah.
but it kept me coming back.
Yeah.
I think it's important to go back a little bit, Kobe, because let's talk about healthy compartmentalization, because I used to compartmentalize in a really unhealthy way. And that was just like, this is hard, this is uncomfortable. And so let's definitely not talk about it ever. And if we do talk about it, I'm going to like,
It was a battle.
the
It was a
battle,
war.
right? It's all the things. So there's more. I can probably at least 5 different trips that we've gone on where you would tell me some big news, drop some big bomb. Literally, one was at the airport as we're getting on an airplane to leave for vacation.
Mm-hmm.
Another's the day before you disclose your second affair and we went
Mm-hmm.
to Disneyland.
Right.
Um, these are really, like, they were big and heavy things for me. And I remember the first time it happened, I was reaching out to our therapist, like, how are we supposed to go on this trip? We've already paid for all this, our hotels or our houses. We've already bought the tickets for Disneyland. what are we supposed to do with this?
Mm-hmm.
How are we supposed to go into this trip and fake it and have fun when really I'm a mess.
Yeah.
I'm broken. I'm all these things. And I remember her saying, "Oh, you absolutely can. You can absolutely go and have a great trip. It may not be your ideal trip, but it's going to be possible if you can in a healthy way say, hey, these things aren't something we're gonna table them right now,
Yep.
and we're definitely going to talk about it when we get back, whether it's in therapy or together, whatever. But while we are on this trip, let's be present. Let's live in the day. Let's be here. You can have time to be hurt and to be sad and to feel. And it's probably where I use more of that, the 15-minute pity party, and just like
Mm-hmm.
let it out so that I can show up and be a mom. I can be a wife. I can have, whatever my trip was meant to be.
Yeah.
And we've done that over and over again.
Mm-hmm. And I don't know, I still remember having the conversation with Amy where she's like, no, you guys are both ready. And I'm like, but we're about to go on holiday. Like, you really are telling me to do this? And she's like, yes. And I was super scared because I knew what that would mean for the trip. And that just kind of it didn't set me on a path, but it's like somehow all this stuff would come up prior to trips, which
Yeah.
is really lousy, like
Mhm.
super lousy and horrible on my part. And I don't know why I thought that was a great time ever to repeat what I did in 2014, but I have. And
I think it's the either way. Like either way, it's going to ruin the trip, right? Like if she looks back and says, "Ugh, why didn't you tell me before? If we'd gone
mhm,
on that first trip to Disneyland,
yeah. And it came
knowing
out
that
a
all this
month
time,
later or
yeah,
whatever. She's like, wait. And this is really how Amy explained it to me was, if you go on this trip and you don't tell her, then what's going to happen is Ashlynn is going to be thinking about all the things that took place at Disneyland, at the beach in San Diego, like like every event. And she's going to be like, wait, you did this, even though you knew you were going to tell me, but you didn't.
yeah, like everything becomes, this is no longer, none of it was real,
Yeah.
right? So that was the first thing that we wanted to share, was the ability to, whether you're right in the middle of the messy middle
Yeah.
and things are hard and recovery is a mess, you can still go and have these memories and come back to those things and talk about them. And that is still healthy, and that is 100% okay. We've done it plenty of times.
Totally.
This was actually a trip we didn't do that, which I'm really proud of. Both of us.
Yes, it was a first in recovery.
No, it wasn't.
Okay, maybe it wasn't a first, but it was a very welcome
Yeah.
non-event prior to leaving on vacation. But meaning like nothing was going to go down. Which
Okay,
is good.
so the next one would be one I get all the time. We have this upcoming trip, or we're going to be with family for the holidays. I know that there's going to be situational triggers, whether we're going to the beach or we're around our family.
Yep.
Or
we're going to be at the pool,
whatever it
we're going to be at
is,
the lake.
we're going to be in big crowds, whatever feeds you or doesn't, it takes from you. What do we do? How do we work around those triggers when we are still trying to have fun?
Yeah. And that's a really important one to face. I mean, that's a really important one for both parties to face, because really at the end of the day, we always refer to this, but the body keeps this score. And if you're a partner who's been betrayed, who feels triggered when you identify other people with striking features, and that's triggering to you, knowing that your partner has betrayed you previously, then it is an indicator that there's work that needs to be done. So if you are one of those, then, and you know that there's an upcoming trip and you're going to be around people that can be triggering, or you're going to be in situations that are going to be triggering, you're going to go to locations that historically are triggering, then stop the episode, find an accelerated resolution therapist in your area, an ART therapist, and do work on that.
Okay.
Straight away.
I'm going to back up, because if you are listening to Coby right now and you're like, wait, what did he just say? Because
Yeah.
you may have just thrown the betrayed under the bus of like, it's your problem if you're triggered. When in reality, they're definitely like we have our own stuff, right?
We all have our own stuff. Now,
But now if we were going to the beach and I'm triggered by other women because you were staring and oogling whatever at
right.
other women, I have good reason.
1,000%. And so, yeah, thank you for pointing that out. I really did kind of gloss over that, not intentionally, but I really did gloss over that. And so if your partner's still in a place where they're still oogling over people, then that's one thing. And maybe it's even time for you to say, actually, let's evaluate if going on holiday is actually a good idea to begin with, because it is okay to say this situation in this home or in this city, in this town, in this environment with these people historically has been a train wreck, and we're very volatile in our relationship and in recovery right now. Perhaps it's a really good idea for us to not go,
Or do something different. I mean,
or yeah,
how
or
many
do
times have
something
you
different.
worked with people who instead of going on their, annual beach vacation, they're like, "You know what? This season it doesn't work and we're going to do a city vacation this time."
Where
And
we're in an urban environment.
yeah, and there's nothing wrong with saying it's like a boundary for now,
Yep.
and a boundary can be just for a season. It doesn't mean it's forever,
Yep.
but it gives you both an opportunity to set yourself up for success and say, hey, we're not there yet.
Yep.
um, I mean, we've been on plenty of beach vacations where we just talked about it ahead of time,
Yeah.
and I said I do feel that pull where I am judging other women or I am feeling insecure, and I recognize that that's my own stuff, but
Yeah.
hey, let's plan ahead and not sit ourselves in front of the women playing volleyball.
For sure.
That is not a great place for me
Yeah,
or for you.
exactly. Right. There's ways to manage environment at a beach, at a lake, at a park, at a pool, whatever, to help mitigate the triggers that might be in that situation, especially if you are not anticipating those, or if you can't look at it and say, okay, maybe we got to do something different. So I know for me, early days in recovery, I still remember this, like going to the local pool for the first time after recovery and saying, I've got to be focused. 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 And I would incessantly repeat that to myself because I didn't understand how in my head what worked for me to be in just that focused, so that I don't allow my mind or my eye to wander. And it's one thing if I notice someone with striking features and then I move on to the next thing, but it does take focus to say, okay, notice that person over there. And I'm going to be focused enough to say, I'm just not going to look in that general direction. And that doesn't mean I need to be looking at the ground or looking at my feet the whole time. That just means I need to be focused. And even if that person crosses my line of sight, I still need to be focused, meaning just because the person crosses my line of sight doesn't mean that I need to go to that whole lusting objectification
Yeah,
train of thought. I can
because
still be focused and
we can
say,
both do it. I
yes,
can look at a beautiful woman or a beautiful man
yeah,
and also go to those places. So for me, it's like your rule, your 3-second rule,
yeah,
right? And it's a very 12-steppy rule to say, hey, your 3 seconds, you're human.
yeah,
If you notice someone who is striking
mm-hmm,
or beautiful to you, but it's what you do with that.
yep,
That where's your intent? Where is
yep,
your heart? And if your heart is in a good place and your intent, sometimes I would be triggered and Kobe wouldn't. And so that was important for us to talk about and to plan ahead. So
yeah, for sure. If you're like a family that loves the beach, but the beach has been ruined,
yeah.
then guess what? You can go to a beach in the Pacific Northwest where people are clothed in long, rain boots and are clamming, and you can still enjoy the water
Oh my gosh.
and enjoy
Is that
people
why we go
fully
there?
clothed. That's not why we go there, but
But we
it's
do love it.
so the point is like make adjustments, and if you need to let yourself off the hook from a traditional holiday or a traditional trip around the holidays that's historically been disastrous,
Yeah.
then be okay with saying this year we're taking a step back and we won't be joining you. As hard as that is possible, and
Totally.
you can do that.
Well, and we do have a specific episode on dealing with family during the holidays or dealing with addiction
Mm-hmm.
during the holidays, something like that. But I will just add, if family events are triggering, I know for us, we
Yeah,
started staying in a hotel when we would go
totally.
anywhere. Like I just said, I don't want to stay with people anymore. I want to have our own space. I want a place that we can retreat to.
Yes.
And it was very important for me to no longer stay with friends or
Uh-huh.
stay with family.
Yeah.
Not because those people are unhealthy, but because we
We needed our
needed,
own dance space. We
yes,
needed to be able to decompress, knowing
yeah.
that it was a triggering situation or that the people that I was around, it's still challenging in some settings for me to be around certain family members, both on my side and Ashlyn's side. And I have to be able to be honest enough with myself and with Ashlyn to say, okay, so when we go to this particular function, it's set up to be there for like, half the day or whatever the case is. I think that we can successfully do like 2 hours and then we're done. Or I can manage an hour. And then after
Or
that,
little
I'm
things
done.
like we've recognized that we do best as a family when we are in family events with just one other family. But when everyone is there, our kids leave unhappy. We leave kind of like flustered and anxiety ridden. And so we've just straight up told family, like, we love your family and we do best when we're just with your family. And of course, there's sometimes where it's everyone, but yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, we've been open. It's not rude. It's like, hey, we want to show up as our best selves and this is how we can do it.
Yeah. But we have to plan that and we have to be honest about it and then just speak our piece. And if the family's supportive, if the people are supportive, they'll get it and be okay with it. They might not like it, but they'll be okay with it.
Yep.
And that will mean that there'll be more of you to love,
Yes.
more of you that you can give to that family.
Yes. Okay. The next thing that we wanted to share was to plan your vacations around seasons. So we talked about this in the episode, What Every Man and Woman Should Know About Women, with the Vagina blog.
Oh yeah.
And I loved that episode. So many comments on that episode. So if you haven't listened to it, go grab it.
So good.
But here's the thing is we planned this trip around it was fall break for our children, and we took it a little bit early and we didn't plan around the seasons well. And so I went into the vacation very heavy with my emotions. And I told Coby, I mean, I feel like I tell him this every month, Coby, I understand what I'm feeling will not feel this way forever. It only is about one day a month, but it feels so real that everything feels wrong. Like we shouldn't be on this vacation. I shouldn't be with Coby. I need to run away. Like everything is too much for me. I feel a lot of overwhelm. And then the next day I'm fine. And it's a really hard place for Coby and my children to be around. And so normally when we're at home, I really just try to I stay off social media. We don't have business meetings. We don't record the podcast that day.
We try not to.
We never have, actually.
Okay, that's good.
Um, and I take time for myself up in our bedroom.
Totally.
But the problem was this trip, we were traveling.
Yeah.
And so I didn't have my own space. I didn't have my own time to recharge and to gather and say, hey, snap out of it. You're
Yeah.
okay. And tomorrow's going to be a better day. And so that was a big takeaway for us both is, yeah, we had this great trip, but I almost would have rather had gone 2 days later and extended it 2 days later.
For sure. For sure. And that's also one of those situations where there might not be a way out of what's already planned because you might have booked a trip where there's non-refundable airline tickets and a non-refundable, housing or whatever the case is. And so you have to be able to do that. And so the best thing to be able to do is to like we're talking about, like plan around the season. So even if you have to go while you're on your cycle, you can ask for what you want. And if you're the partner of someone who is going to be on their cycle while on holiday, be understanding, because that I still remember while we were on holiday that day, it was really challenging for me. And there were moments when I would have thoughts race across my mind and they would leave as quickly as they came. But I knew that that was the day. And I knew that you weren't your normal self, Ash. And so it was like, I had immediate thoughts of just like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe this is going, like, just really impatient and wholly unempathetic thoughts. But I was like, wait, stop.
And it was
It's
hard because
okay.
we were go, go, go. We're on vacation. We're trying to
Mhm.
like And normally on that day, I don't have to do that at home. I can
Totally.
just relax and do my own thing. And so I'm like, I'm still trying to show up for the vacation,
Yeah.
but I also was like, I don't want to be here and I
Yeah.
feel awful emotionally and physically,
Hmm.
but I'm trying and I didn't do a great job. And the worst is we met people for the first time and
Yeah.
that was how they met me. And afterwards she messaged me and I definitely was like, I'm so sorry that that's how you met me because that was not me. And I just was having a very off day. And she was very understanding of like,
Totally.
oh, I got it. I understand that.
Yeah. And ultimately, at the end of the day, if you can, if again, plan for the seasons, if you can plan around it, do it. And if you can't plan around it, then plan for it while you're there so that you have strategic downtime. And the truth is that I could have taken the girls and gone
But
and
I
just
would have
allowed,
missed out.
yeah,
It's this weird, I have FOMO. I need to go,
you
but
just
I'm going
have
to be
to,
mean.
yeah,
So watch out.
yeah, you just got to be understanding. So
Oh,
once you plan for seasons, then you're going to be like, wait, we really got this. We're really going to be good.
yes. And you have to track everything in order to know how to plan for your season. So I do track and have for quite a while. But
Track, but also share. And
yeah,
if you're a partner who's never discussed your wife's cycle,
go listen to that podcast.
listen to that podcast. But I promise it will be in your best interest and hers to know what her cycle
Okay,
is.
I have to share this real quick. I talked about this on my Instagram while we were on vacation because I'm like, this is the real stuff. Like, I can't show up authentic. Like, look how much fun we're having when in really reality is like,
I want to push Coby off the pier.
yeah, Coby hates me and I hate him right now. And there was a lot of like, thank you for that. But the truth is that a gal reached out and she said, look at this conversation between me and my husband. And
Oh,
he had
this is
texted
rad.
and he was like, hey, are you tracking your cycle? And she's like, yeah. Are you listening to that podcast set about the cycles, that we had done? And he's like, yeah, let's start making a graph. Let's chart this. Like he was super excited. And she said, this is something I've been waiting for so long, is to be able to talk about these
Like
really,
openly.
yeah, like why is this uncomfortable? It's a very human and woman thing that
Hmm.
men should also understand and know. So anyways, how to share that. So
Yep.
last one, planning enough time to recharge. And really this trip was a lot of like Coby took the week off from work.
Yep.
He's an empath, which means he feels very deeply
Uh-huh.
and he
I knew before we left, it was like, okay, we're going to be gone, but I'm just, there's like 6 different things that are really heavy that all really hit us in the month of October. 2 or 3 typical ones, but there were additional situations that took place. It was like, this is just like overwhelming. And before we left on the trip, I had the thought cross my mind, I need to just separate myself fully because we've been in a place where we can work and function doing groups and doing, Ashlyn doesn't do one-on-one calls, but I do one-on-one calls with people. And that was our plan, was to do that
yeah,
while we
we
were
can just
gone.
work from the beach. It's fine.
Totally. But I knew for sure that I had to take time away. And that's what we planned for. And so before we left, I messaged all my groups, I messaged all my one-on-one guys and just said, I need time to recharge. I need time to renew. Lots of heavy stuff is going on. And so this is how we're going to adjust things, blah, blah, blah. So glad we did.
Yeah, and to that point, Coby, we this month October for us is heavy. I mean, to name a few,
Right?
we've
I disclosed the second affair.
we've been separated twice during October.
Yep.
Our girls were sexually abused by an adult woman during this time,
Uh-huh.
years and years ago. It's just a time where our body shows up no matter how much work we've done,
Yep.
and it's just a little bit wonky.
Yep. And it's not just us, it's also the girls too. So we're
We've
dealing
actually,
with it as parents, but also as partners and individuals. So it's like this Mitchell cluster
oh, and
in the month of October.
your mom
And my
passed away
mom's
during
my
that month.
mom's birth date and death date are in October.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, this is the last, 4 years we
Yeah.
have gone on some sort of vacation this time of year to
In
create
part. Yeah.
new memories, but also to just say, hey, we can still have joy during a month that is very wonky and heavy.
Hard. Totally.
Yeah. So, planning ahead to recharge, what does that look like for you?
Well, sitting by a fire is so renewing for me. And watching the surf of the ocean is very renewing to me. And so we were able to do both of those. I mean, had a we stayed in Seaside, Oregon, in this Airbnb, and it had a couple of gas fireplaces in it. And the very first morning that we were there, because we got there at night in the dark, we could hear the ocean, but we were literally like a block from it,
Mhm.
and we had a clear line of sight from the house to it. And the first morning I went to the top floor where there was a sitting room and there was a fireplace, and I turned the fireplace on and just sat and watched the ocean. I opened the window so I could hear it, and just sat by the fire. So, and I was quiet. I wasn't on my phone. I just sat there and just absorbed it. I need downtime
Mhm.
as well. And this is actually a trip where I built in more activity time
Which
and
is not
interaction time,
not Kobe's
which is
norm.
not, it's totally not my norm. And but at the same time, I mean, it was a good lesson learned, right? I'm a super social person, but I'm also a person, as I'm getting older, who I just need time by myself. So I need downtime, and I need time in a really renewing environment for me.
Mhm.
For Ashlynn, I think the desert speaks a lot to you
Mhm.
and renews you, and it makes me sweat, which I don't like. The
Well,
desert.
it is, but I get both. Like us walking through those forests up there,
Oh man.
I love it. I love it. And if it means you'll join me because it's a walk and not a
Yes.
hike, then heck yeah.
It
I
is stunning.
that renews me, and it's just like
We walked through
endless
the Grand
beauty.
Forest. Is that where it was? In
Yeah,
Poulsbo,
over
Washington?
Bainbridge
Yeah,
Island.
just west of Bainbridge Island. And we walked, it was a rainforest.
Yeah.
And it was a walk, but it was in, fern laden, moss covered trees. And it was just,
Not our norm here
no,
in
it
the
was
high
just,
desert of Utah.
it was just beautiful.
So
That was renewing for me.
what I think is important, Kobe and I were talking about this on the way home yesterday. He says, as I've gotten older, I've realized I need more downtime. And I think it's not that he's gotten older because I'm the same way. I think it's that we've gotten to know
Ourselves
ourselves
more.
better.
Yeah,
And Kobe and
that's
I
fair.
both are very similar in I was always labeled the introvert, he was labeled the extrovert. And yet here we are where we both feel lifted up by people,
Yeah.
but also lifted up by alone time and just us time. And it wasn't that before.
No.
I thought I only feel lifted by myself, or being with people is so scary and so much anxiety. But now I'm like, wait, if it's the right kind of people, it's totally great for me and it lifts me up.
Yeah.
And just starting to find more clarity and understanding of what I need and
Yes.
who I am,
Yes.
and accepting that
Being
instead
okay with
of,
it. Like, this is me and I need to be okay with it.
yeah, instead of the
Being
this
should Instead of shooting myself,
well, I
I've
think
learned to accept myself for who I really am.
right. And I used to say a lot like it's just who I am. And I hate hearing that now because guess what? Who I am can shift. Who I
Mhm.
am can change her mind.
Yep.
And I definitely have done that in the last few years, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Beautifully so. Beautifully so. So again, I really, in fact, actually, we had very different experiences on holiday when we were in our individual families of origin growing
Mhm.
up.
Yeah.
Ashlynn's family was very much, let's go and let's do all the things on holiday. And my mom was also an empath, and she gave and gave and gave because she not only had 7 kids, but she kept kids with special needs. And that would require a certain amount of empathy from her in order to execute like just day-to-day functions. And so when we went on holiday, my mom would like, we would go to Park City, Utah. My dad had a timeshare. My mom would just say, let's go to Costco. Let's load up on food that we can, throw in the freezer and then just cook, on the spot and get. And she's like, we're going to take all the movies and we're just going to hunker down. We're going to go swim and then we'll pop over to the outlets, but we're just going to relax. And my mom legit would do that. And
And me as the in-law was like, why aren't we hiking? Why aren't we going on the alpine slide? What are
this
we
isn't how
doing?
we do it. But my mom, without her really knowing that, I don't think that she did. Maybe she did, and she just didn't directly tell us. My mom was like, this is what we're going to do. We're just going to relax. And I don't think she understood why, but I learned to do that. And I didn't realize how much I enjoyed that until I probably was just kind of thrust into one of your family vacations where we were just like going and going and going. And I'm like, but I'm so tired. I need to have
We're like,
rest from
no
my
time for naps.
vacation.
Come on.
Yeah. And that was actually probably the big one.
Yeah.
Right. And so
We had to kind of forge both of
totally.
our like, okay, these are things we really liked about growing up,
Hmm.
family vacations. These are things that we could do different.
Yes.
And I think we've done a good mesh
We really
of
have.
both.
We really have. We're still trying to fine tune it because this one was
It still
a
wasn't
little
perfect.
bit different, but they never are. But I will say that it's now we know more that there's two things that we have to be able to plan for certain, as far as like objectives for holiday. Number one is we have to have enough downtime, but we also have to have enough activity time.
Yes.
And as long as if we can do those two things and be very intentional with those and explain those things to our girls as to why, then it makes more sense why we're not like chasing around this way and that, right? And we're giving ourselves time to relax.
Yeah.
Um,
Well,
we're
and as we've
yeah.
been more open with this with our girls, they've been able to feel a lot of the same feelings. They're very much like us and they like the activities and then they
Mhm.
just want to go home and just like crash,
Yeah.
take a shower and be done for the
Yep.
day. And I'm like, okay, that's okay. It's
Yep.
okay.
It totally is. It totally is. We went to Glenwood Springs, Colorado, back in, was
Right
it
after
June?
lockdown. I don't know.
Yeah, I can't remember when that was. It Glenwood Springs was only like 2 weeks from opening up from lockdown, so we got there when it was really very
Yeah.
quiet.
Nobody was there.
But the cool part is they have this enormous hot spring. They have multiple hot springs in Glenwood Springs. But the cool part is that we were able to achieve both activity, but also resting and renewal.
I'll sit in a hot spring all day long. And that's an activity and a renewal.
Yes. And that's one of those things that we wouldn't have known would work for both of us
Mhm.
to achieve both objectives. Because the truth is I'm not like the guy who's like, I just want to go somewhere and lay in bed all day. That's not who I am, but I want to be able to have time to relax for certain.
Yeah.
But it was far more than relaxing, and it was renewing to go and to just have downtime while in the hot springs.
Yep.
That was really fun.
Oh,
So I think that
that's
covers
it. That's it. So
all the things.
I hope this gave you a little bit of insight into, we're still not there yet. We
No,
we continue to adjust and shift and use each vacation as data and say this is what we could do a little different
for
next
sure.
time. And that's part of this. This is, what is life after recovery? This is it. It's
It's true.
it's not like we're giving it up. We're not talking about it ever again. It's still part of our life, but we're still having a lot of fun.
Yep. And I will say this, that recovery has allowed us to enjoy vacation and holiday way more because we understand ourselves more.
Yeah.
We understand our partners more. Like we understand each other more. And it like recovery, I've said this many times before. I wouldn't wish addiction on anyone, but I wish recovery on every person because they are quintessential life skills that will allow anyone to manage and to deal with and to in a healthy way cope with life as it comes at us. And yeah, it's like recovery has enhanced our ability to vacation in a more effective and connecting way, in a more renewing way.
Yes.
So
Amen. So go plan your next trip if you haven't already.
yeah, the holidays are coming, and remember, look ahead. Part of recovery is
Plan
looking
ahead.
ahead, is planning ahead, is anticipating, and then be able to look back and say, let's have an honest conversation about how that went to go to, your mom's place or my dad's place or whatever the case was for Thanksgiving or for Christmas or for New Year's.
Oh my gosh. I think that's so important. Okay. So we do plan ahead and we talk about it and we have those conversations.
Yes.
But we also we have the like let's reflect. And we did that on the way home and it was super valuable.
Yeah, it really was.
Good point. All right.
Thanks for being here,
Take care.
guys.
Thank you guys.